next. Bruce, this does sound serious, families of diplomats being ordered to leave the country. What does history tell us about situations like this, and does it mean an invasion is imminent?
Well, no, it doesn't mean an invasion is imminent, but it does mean that the U.S. thinks that it's quite likely. So the U.S. has said not only that family members should leave the embassy, but also the State Department has urged U.S. citizens in the country to consider leaving Ukraine. And then we just heard Secretary of State Blinken talk about when to impose sanctions. That's in response to a bipartisan call from both Republican and Democratic members of Congress that the U.S. actually should start imposing sanctions now, even before Russia invades again, in order to let Vladimir Putin know that the U.S. is serious. Tony Blinken has said, no, that's not the point of sanctions. The point of sanctions is to hold them out there as a deterrent.
So we saw that Geneva meeting yielded little in terms of anything around Ukraine. When will the next opportunity be for some relief from these tensions?
Well, the good news from that meeting is at least they agreed that they were going to continue talking, right? So that's something. We know over the weekend that the UK has said that they have intelligence that Moscow is plotting to install a pro-Russian Ukrainian leader, something that Moscow has denied. The Russians have pointed to that as what they say is an example of Western provocation. We also know that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is planning on having meetings, talks this week with other leaders of the G7 in an attempt to finalize sanctions. That's something that the Western allies still haven't quite agreed on what the actual sanctions would be.
Bruce, Russia and China have a reasonably close relationship at the moment. With the Winter Olympics 11 days away, could this change the picture in terms of Vladimir Putin's intentions around Ukraine?
Yeah, that's a very good point. China is Russia's largest trading partner. Russia increasingly relies on China as pressure builds from the West. And the Winter Olympics are scheduled to begin on February 4th. They're scheduled to conclude on the 20th. In the midst of all that, Russia is scheduled to have its joint military exercises with Belarus. But it's not just the Olympics themselves. There's also the Paralympics after that. And the Chinese have called for a traditional halt to all hostilities worldwide. And that's something that the Russians have actually agreed to. Whether they stick to that is another question. But presumably President Xi Jinping of China would be not happy if a Russian invasion were to overshadow the Beijing Olympics, given how much China has committed to this, both in terms of resources as well as its whole COVID-0 strategy. If a Russian invasion took place during the Olympics, that would certainly make the world pay attention to things going on elsewhere and not going to the games in Beijing.